the 1985 Chicago Bears, and the 1986 New York Giants. In back-to-back seasons, these two defenses changed the NFL forever. One came with swagger, personality, and a defense so aggressive that quarterbacks were beaten before the ball was even snapped. The other came with precision, discipline, and one of the most feared players the game has ever seen, Lawrence Taylor. The Bears called themselves the Monsters of the Midway. They were brash, they were loud, and they didn't just want to beat you, they wanted to humiliate you. Their defense was so suffocating that it turned NFL Sundays into highlight reels of destruction. The Giants, on the other hand, were cold and calculating. The Big Blue Wrecking Crew. They didn't need to brag. They just lined up, executed Bill Belichick's schemes, and crushed opponents under a wave of blue jerseys. At the center stood LT, an unstoppable force, redefining what defense could be. So here's the debate. Which defense was truly greater? The one-year wrecking machine from Chicago that burned the league to the ground? Or the Giants unit that set a blueprint for decades to come? This is the story of the 85 Bears and the 86 Giants, two defenses, one crown. The mid-1980s were a different era of football. The game was still violent, raw, and ruled by defenses. Passing numbers were growing, but in the NFC, championships were still decided in the trenches. The Chicago Bears had been building something nasty under Mike Ditka and defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan. By 1984, they were knocking on the door, reaching the NFC championship game before falling to the 49ers. They weren't polished yet, but everyone could see it coming. That defense was close to breaking loose, and when 1985 arrived, it all came together. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, another storm was brewing. The New York Giants hadn't been relevant for decades, but Bill Parcells had reshaped them into contenders. His secret weapon? A young defensive mastermind named Bill Belichick, who was crafting schemes around one of the most unstoppable defenders the league had ever seen. The 1985 Chicago Bears defense wasn't just great, it was overwhelming. A storm that opponents could see coming, but were powerless to stop. Their weapon was Buddy Ryan's creation, the 46 defense. It shoved 8 men near the line of scrimmage, daring offenses to adjust. Quarterbacks couldn't read it, linemen couldn't block it, running backs couldn't escape it. It was chaos, organized chaos, and the personalities matched the scheme. Mike Singletary, the middle linebacker, was the heartbeat. Those piercing eyes darting back and forth before the snap burned into the psyche of quarterbacks. Richard Dent was the relentless pass rusher, piling up 17 sacks on the season. Dan Hampton and Steve McMichael anchored the line, snarling and crashing into anyone who crossed the middle. Otis Wilson and Wilbur Marshall brought speed and fury from the outside. And in the secondary, Gary Fencik and Dave Duerson finished the job with crushing hits. The results were staggering. The Bears gave up just 12.4 points per game, the stingiest mark in the NFL. They sacked quarterbacks 64 times, they forced 54 turnovers, and they won games not by inches but by knockout blows. Then came the playoffs, where this defense became legendary. They blanked the Giants 21-0, knocking Phil Simms into the Soldier Field turf over and over again. They smothered Eric Dickerson and the Rams 24-0 in a cold Chicago afternoon. And in Super Bowl 20, they destroyed the New England Patriots 46-10. 7 sacks, 6 turnovers, a defensive touchdown. It wasn't just a championship, it was a massacre. For one season, the Bears weren't just the best defense in football, they were the best team in football. And they did it with a swagger that left opponents beaten before kickoff. If the Bears owned 1985, the Giants ruled 1986. Their defense wasn't built on shock value like the 46. It was built on discipline, versatility, and one transcendent superstar, Lawrence Taylor. LT wasn't just the Defensive Player of the Year in 1986. He was the NFL MVP, the last defensive player to win the award. That season, he was unstoppable, racking up 20.5 sacks and redefining what an outside linebacker could be. He didn't just rush the passer, he hunted them. He changed blocking schemes, he forced offenses to scrap entire game plans, and he made every quarterback think twice about taking the snap. But this wasn't just the Lawrence Taylor show. Harry Carson was the captain in the middle, smart, steady, and tough as nails. Carl Banks was the enforcer, delivering crushing hits that sent shockwaves through offensive lines. Leonard Marshall was the muscle up front, collapsing pockets with brute strength, while George Martin provided consistency and leadership. Behind them, the secondary played sound, disciplined football, trusting the front seven to wreak havoc. Under Bill Parcells and defensive mastermind Bill Belichick, the Giants ran a 3-4 base defense that could morph week to week. Unlike the Bears' all-gas, no-breaks approach, the Giants played a more calculated game. They disguised coverages, shifted fronts, and turned LT into a roaming nightmare who could line up anywhere. The results spoke for themselves. The Giants gave up just 14.8 points per game, collected 59 sacks, and smothered opponents into mistakes. And when the playoffs arrived, they were merciless. They humiliated the 49ers, 49-3, knocking Joe Montana out of the game and announcing to the league that the torch had passed. They blanked Washington 17-0 in the NFC Championship, their defense suffocating from start to finish. And in Super Bowl 21, they battered John Elway and the Broncos 39-20 to lift their first Lombardi trophy. This wasn't a one-year wonder. This was the foundation of Giants football. The Big Blue Wrecking Crew had arrived, and they weren't going anywhere. Here's where the debate gets tricky, because greatness isn't just about numbers. It's about how long that greatness lasts. The 1985 Chicago Bears defense is often called the single most dominant unit in NFL history. And it's hard to argue. No defense has ever matched their playoff run. 2 straight shutouts, capped by a 46-10 Super Bowl demolition. They didn't just win the championship. They embarrassed their opponents on the biggest stage imaginable. But here's the truth. It didn't last. When Buddy Ryan left to coach the Eagles, the 46 defense left with him. The Bears remained strong in the late 80s, but they were never that unstoppable again. The 46 was copied around the league. But once offensive coordinators adjusted, its weaknesses were exposed. In the end, the 85 Bears were a one-season wrecking ball. Unforgettable, historic, but fleeting. The Giants, on the other hand, were built to endure. Belichick's 3-4 defense was more adaptable, more sustainable. It didn't rely on surprise, it relied on execution. And with Lawrence Taylor leading the charge, the Giants remained dominant for years. They won another Super Bowl in 1990, still anchored by that same defensive philosophy. And Belichick's blueprint didn't just fade, it became the model for entire dynasties, resurfacing 2 decades later with the New England Patriots. So here's the question. What matters more? The Bears' untouchable peak, 1 year of destruction that no one has ever replicated, or the Giants' lasting legacy, a defense that evolved, endured, and shaped the future of the NFL? That's the debate at the heart of this rivalry. Drop your pick in the comments, Bears or Giants. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe to ChiSports Legends.